Bivol versus Beterbiev is happening October 12th, this Saturday. I'm going to be going through the entire card, giving my prediction and breakdown of how I think the fights will go, what the fighters can do, what they're bad at, and starting with the early prelims, and we're going to end with the main event. So we're going to start off with Alakel versus Jesus Gonzalez. Now, Alakel, he seems to be a amateur who's moving up, and this will be his first professional fight. Props to him. Early prelim opener of like a main card. That's pretty good. So I wasn't really able to find a lot of footage of him. So I can't really give a good breakdown of his abilities. But Jesus Gonzalez, I didn't want to do a breakdown of him either since we don't know what their fights are going to be like, I guess. I'm assuming Jesus Gonzalez, no offense to him, is probably just a can that is going to come in to get Alakel's feet wet in the professional realm. So looking forward to seeing what the kid can do, and I can't really give any more information than that because I don't know all that much. So, but second fight of the card: Sky Nicholson versus Raven Chapman. Now Nicholson, crafty southpaw fighter. She's got a mean jab. She's got nice counters when her opponents come in. Her last fight, it showed her landing her jab at will, really frustrating her opponent with her speed and footwork. She seems to have decent power for the women's division. The one issue I have with her is that sometimes she admires her work, which leads to her getting countered. And she'll admire her work when she has somebody hurt and she won't push the pace. So that's the one thing I'm not a huge fan of. Raven Chapman, her opponent, very strong and physical fighter. She throws mean combos to close the distance, and then she bullies her opponents in the clinch. Her shots seem pretty heavy. She's very good at cutting off the ring against her opponents, but I just think that her style is one that plays into Nicholson's strengths and that she's going to exploit using her jab and footwork. I think if Chapman tries to rush in and enforce her game plan, that she's just going to be stopped with that jab, and Nicholson is just going to step away from her without her being able to catch up. Unless she gets her in the clinch and getting cornered, but I don't really see that happening with Nicholson. So I'm going to lean towards a Nicholson decision for that second fight of the card. Up the card, we've got Ben Whitaker versus Liam Cameron. Now, Ben Whitaker, sleek boxer, great head movement, defense, and shot selection. He's a bit of a showboater, which is awesome, but he does rely heavily on his reflexes to avoid punches and roll with them. Footwork is super nice. He stays close. He punishes his opponents if they miss a shot. Constantly mixing up shots to the body and the head, which I really like. The showboating is a little concerning. Just because he uses his reflexes to avoid punches. And if it becomes a habit, he's going to get caught because eventually you will slow down, or you're going to think something isn't going to hit you and it does. So that's the only issue I have with it, that he might get caught big eventually. Liam Cameron, come forward guy, decent combos and punches in the clinch. I just think he's going to be too slow and open for Whitaker, and I think that Whitaker is just going to be putting the beat down on him for a majority of the fight, and I could honestly even see a stoppage. So leaning towards a Whitaker stoppage for that fight. Up the card, Jai Apatea versus Jack Massey. Now, Apatea, rangy southpaw, quick jab, crisp 1-2, uses his footwork and jabs to push his opponents back into the corners, and then he unloads with his 1-2s on them when they're kind of trapped and they can't really escape. Only thing I don't like is he really does headhunt a bit, and I think adding shots to the body to his arsenal will really help him long term. His last fight was against a great in Gassiev, I believe. And he just headhunted on it. Don't get me wrong, he'll damage his opponents, but I think it would help him long term to slow his opponent down by going to the body. He's got a great gas tank, really solid chin. He's a great fighter. Jack Massey, a slugger. He likes to fight up close. He's willing to trade shots to land his own, and he's really confident in his chin. He's got good head movement, but he does seem to take a lot of damage just because of the style that he fights with. He's in there in the nitty gritty, landing one-to-one trades with his opponents. He does rely on his opponents coming towards him, and he fires back quickly when they try to land their shots. But I think his style kind of plays into Opatea's strengths, and I think unless he learns how to cut off the ring and engage, he's going to be caught by the jabs and the 1-2s all night. So I'm going to lean towards an Opatea decision. Up the card, Fabio Wardley, Frazier Clark. Cool fight. It's a rematch since their first fight went to a draw. Wardley, a bit slower, but his punches seem to have like a thudding power to them. And he keeps his pace the same during the entire fight. And in their first fight, Clark started off really quick, had a lot of success, but then as the fight went on, he couldn't keep up the pace that he had put in the beginning rounds. And Wardley seemed to be able to maintain his pace and start to win those later rounds. Even though his face was busted up, he was able to take those rounds off of Clark because Clark just couldn't keep the pace that he had set. So I think if he just is patient a little bit, tries to win the first rounds without expending as much as he can, and then saving that energy for the later rounds, I think that he can take this fight. And I'm going to lean towards a Clark decision if he's able to pace himself a bit more, you know. But I'm honest, I wouldn't be surprised either if like maybe he tries to get a finish or something and then gasses himself with Wardley being able to take over at the end. So, but I'm going to lean towards a Clark decision. Up the card, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Cesar Almeida. Now, Eubank Jr., good boxer, solid fundamentals, and he's got a gas tank that just won't quit. It's one of his best assets. You know, he had a little trouble. He got caught against Liam Smith and then came back and avenged his loss. So credit to him. Cesar Almeida, been a bit difficult trying to find footage of his recent fights. But from his older fights, I don't see anything to indicate that he might be near Eubank's level. And so I think this is just going to be an easy TKO win for Eubank. I think Eubank is just going to be the better fighter out there with the better gas tank, and he's just going to break Cesar Almeida down as the fight goes on. So I'm going to lean towards a Chris Eubank Jr. finish, you know. And then last but not least, Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. Now, this is a fight that I think I've been excited for like, I don't know how many years, long time. You know, that's the one downside about boxing is promoters letting fights marinate. I hate that term so much. You know, it sucks, but now we're having it. You know, God bless the Saudi oil princes, I guess, and their human rights violations because it gives them money. But Beterbiev, great boxer, power in both hands, devastating power in both his hands, and he's got a patient, methodical game plan. You know, credit to that Soviet style. I think people really underestimate his ability to cut off the ring that he has, and he's got a solid chin on top of it all. He mixes up his shots well, really strong in the clinch. His aggression when he's got somebody hurt, very measured. He doesn't get excited and he doesn't end up smothering his work like some other boxers do. You know, just all around great fighter. Bivol, where I guess Beterbiev is methodical, uses his power to slowly break down his opponent. Bivol, very measured mid-range fighter who dances on the outside. So he's got fast hands and he's got good footwork. He doesn't have like the most power, but he will land on you all night if you let him. His footwork keeps him safe. He's got great head movement, defense. Even when fighters are trying to bully him, he's able to get around the outside and stay, you know, away from them, jabbing them and landing 1-2s. And I think if Bivol can avoid getting cornered, like I said, I do think that Beterbiev's ring cutting capability is underrated. But if Bivol can avoid getting cornered, I think he will take the fight by just, you know, picking Beterbiev at range all night. Beterbiev, though, I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to catch Bivol neither. You know, they're both great fighters. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Wish it would have happened sooner, obviously, but excited that it's here now, you know. So, yeah, I'm going to lean towards a Bivol decision because I just think that Bivol, he's the younger guy, and his style, I think, will be the one that gives issues towards Beterbiev, a slick guy who's hard to pin down, who's hard to corner. I think that's kind of that'll be the kryptonite against Beterbiev. So I'm going to lean towards a Bivol decision. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys at the next one.